Hey, welcome back to the channel. Do you have a Switch Lite that's having a hard time reading its game cartridges and you don't know if maybe you stuck a game in it backwards on accident or it's just full of fuzz? Well, fortunately, on the Switch Lite, it's not that hard of a job, not too expensive a job, to just go ahead and change the game port out. It's a pretty simple procedure. Pop the back off, get the tins out of the way, and swap the parts. So, if you stick around, we'll show you how to get that done. Hey, welcome back to the channel. On the bench today, we have a Switch Lite. And this particular Switch Lite came to us today because it's not reading games from the game slot, our cartridges. But we were also informed that something other than a game may have gone down into that game slot and probably damaged it. So we're not even going to mess around knowing what we know. We're not even going to mess around trying to diagnose or look at pins or do any of that. Instead, we're just going to go through the procedure on changing the game slot. Fortunately, on the Switch Lite, it's not that bad of a job. It should all be back up on top. And let's just get into it. As always, check for a game, check for an SD card, and there isn't one in this one. And, pretty similar to a standard Switch, we've got our 4 tri-wing, we have 2 Phillips on the top and 2 Phillips on the bottom. Also, when you separate the shell, you're going to come off the bottom first so you can lift up off the buttons and the headphone jack. And I've made mention before, the Switch Lite is kind of twisty, a little flimsy. It's just a plastic frame where a standard Switch has an actual alloy frame. So I always try to work on something so I'm not putting pressure on the joysticks and twisting it because we don't want to crack the screen on accident. Sometimes they can be a little stubborn. Especially if something had been spilled into it. There we go. And the back is off. Don't force it. Don't put excessive pressure on. In this case, there was something a little sticky right here in the corner that wasn't releasing. So just go ahead and come from the other side. Also, when you're coming off of the back, the bottom trigger kind of captures into this edge. So it really needs to tip and then it'll come up. All right, from here, we just need to take our back shell off. These are all Phillips. Okay. In this one, it captures on the sides. So that all side. And you want to be careful of your buttons. You can remove them if they get in your way. As you can see, it lays out similar. Factory antenna. Because I don't think this thing's been opened. It looks like the antenna was pulled up. Anyway, here's our game slot. And we just have a few screws holding the headphone jack and the game slot in. And as you can see here, our headphone jack will separate. So you don't have to replace it complete like with a standard switch. A few more Phillips screws and it will be out. All right, at this point, all we gotta do is release this bail here. Oh, we got one more screw holding us in. And it should lift and wiggle out, just like that. There we go. I had dropped one of the screws. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't sitting anywhere. It was going to short us afterwards. All right, from here, as you can see, we've got one bail. We take off our headphone jack, slide it off. I might take that one apart and try to add a picture or two. Put our headphone jack back in. Close the bail. Just gently guide it into place. There we go. And with both of these little ears, push the whole way down, close the bail, and reverse the process. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple on this one. Now, unlike the standard switch where every single one of these screws is the same that had come out of the back, there is one longer gold switch or screw, and it went right here in this copper pad, and it holds our tin in place. Honestly, before we button up the back, why don't we go ahead and verify that it's all working. So we'll push our power button, which should be that guy there. Oh, we have a bit of a charge. Make sure everything else is going. There we go, got a little sound. And here's my test cart. Plug it in, make sure it comes in. And it does. So we're reading games now. I'll go ahead and pop the back on this, and I'll be right back. All right, I wanted to come back just a little bit before we had this all finalized. When you go to put the backing on a Switch Lite, the two tabs in the back, obviously going to capture here, it folds this way. The one gold screw, as I just mentioned, goes here. But make sure that you do not accidentally capture the ribbon underneath there for your switch. And then it should kind of sit in this little channel like that, and then it will sit up in here nice and flat. Make sure it's flat, make sure it's in that channel so it doesn't get pinched. Also, when you go to put the back on, you might recognize this little rubber overlay because it presses the small tactile buttons. You know, this isn't like a gamepad where you have the carbon traces that make the contact on the board. These are actual physical switches being pressed, and the rubber just kind of buffets it, you know, so you don't accidentally crush the switches. But just like when this came off, these need to be put on first and then it rolled back. Otherwise, the rubber boot will fall off and it will be out of a line. It's not the easiest thing to do. It gets a tad fiddly, but as you can see, it kind of grabs here. You just got to get behind it. There we go. And it'll snap all down and around. All right, now we can get those screws back in. All right, we're all back together. Go ahead and hit our power. Bring her back to life. We already tested it, but never hurts to get a final check. All right. And there we go. Our game's reading, it's starting up, no problems. As you can see, some things on the Switch Lite aren't too bad to try to repair. Changing these Joy-Cons can be kind of a pain. This one's not so bad. This one, you got to remove the entire motherboard to swap it out. But if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and make them down below. I respond to everything that's a real comment or question. Why don't you give us a thumbs up? And if you have to give us that thumbs down, make a comment. Let us know what we can do different. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you on that next video. Thanks.